I see you as someone who's down to earth and humble. And David, you're now, as you know, one of the most wealthiest people in the world, which is kind of crazy. And my personal observation is that when someone acquires massive amounts of wealth, it tends to kind of magnify their existing personality. So someone that's a difficult person becomes more of an asshole. Someone that's kind becomes more good-hearted. This is my armchair psychology, right? Where does this extreme generosity come from? And can you tell us more about that conversation that you had with Maria when you're like, hey, we're going to make this pledge? Like, take us to that conversation.
Yeah, sure. So listen, we've been I've never expected this level of success. I've never expected the growth of Nubank as quickly as possible. We knew it could be big, but we never imagined this could be as big and as fast that it has happened. I think especially as I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs that have gone through this journey know every time you close a new round and you see more zeros next to your valuation, you're like, wow, like what is this? And then another one comes in bigger and then a bigger and bigger. You're like, what is happening? I don't think really people expect this. And so I think over the past, let's say 12, 18 months, we continue to see this growth and it just made us ask us a ton of different questions and reflect very profoundly about what all of this means. And we wrote a letter here on the Giving Pledge and why we do it, but it's a letter product of a lot, maybe like a year of really thinking about the question. And it's a number of different things. First, we feel extremely lucky. We feel extremely lucky of having been born in the families we were born, in the conditions that we were born. None of us were born necessarily in wealthy families, super wealthy, but we had enough to go to good schools and access good opportunities, and even more that having parents that really cared about us and educated us and instituted a lot of values that were important. So that's really important, that's valuable, and that's not common. That's actually uncommon. So number one, we feel very, very, very lucky and privileged. Number two, we feel when we look at Latin America and we look at technology, I know one of the bets of Nubank initially is that all industries in all geographies will be massively disrupted by technology companies. I was trying to dig in this data, but something like only 2% of the market cap of Latin American companies was created in the past 20 years. Only 2%. That's compared to something like 25% in the US. So in the next 20 years, you're going to see an enormous amount of Latin American companies that will disrupt all industries in all Latin American countries. And what technology creates is extreme outcomes in terms of numbers, profitability, and wealth. These outcomes, these companies are going to generate an extreme amount of wealth. And so when I think about that extreme outcomes, and then I look at Latin America as a region with so much poverty, I can only imagine just lot of instability in all the countries that we operate if that inequality doesn't get resolved. And you could arrive to this conclusion from a number of different ways. A lot of very religious people will have sort of the religious morality that you have to give something to back to society. We're not necessarily religious, but we do feel a moral imperative to give back. But even if you don't feel anything morally, and if you just think about how do you make this system, these countries self-sustaining, you would be incentivized to give almost everything back, because otherwise this inequality is going to create so much instability that the entire system in all of these countries is going to collapse. I don't see any other way. People will collapse. You cannot have these extreme outcomes. So you could choose your own different path, and each person will go and follow their own path. But at least for us personally, we concluded that the right way for us is to give back a lot of the extreme outcomes back to society. And that's a better allocation for society. That's almost like a more efficient outcome for society, because then two other things. First, there is diminishing marginal returns to wealth. at some point, once you have food and house and car and clothes, and maybe you take a couple of trips and you get some luxuries, there is very fast diminishing returns. Your additional $10 million is not really going to bring you that much happiness. But if you grab those 10 million and you give it to somebody that doesn't have something to eat tonight, the value they're going to get from that, it's so enormous, right? If you grab that money that is somewhere in some bank account in New York and you put it and you give it to somebody that is desperately needing cancer surgery and has been waiting for 6 months in a public hospital, there is so much more value in that money there than in a bank account in the Cayman Islands. So also from an efficiency perspective, it's a better outcome, we think, to grab money that is not being used and give it to people that can use it better. So that's one thing. And the second argument is, and this is something I think maybe the way has historically worked, especially in Latin America, is we do not want to give all that money to our kids. We just don't want to do it. We don't believe in dynasties. We don't believe in kids growing up in these gold cages with ton of nannies and just living this real life. I don't want to make a moral judgment here, but the reason why I don't believe in that is when I look back about what made me and made Marielle is a lot of the biggest, most formative experiences were times where things were not easy for us and we had to work really freaking hard to get it. That sense of desperation that you don't have something and that you desperately need it, and that becomes a motivator for you to go get it, and then you get it, is priceless. There is no money in the world that can buy you that. And we want our kids to feel that. We want our kids, the three of them, to feel the hunger, feel the desperation, feel that they can go and work hard and get it, and ultimately the self-accomplishment, the self-esteem that comes from having fought and having won. And if we were to take that path of just here you go, unlimited money, you take that away from them. And I don't want to take that away from them. So I think from a number of different reasons, if you have an efficiency argument, a morality argument, a religious argument, education argument for your kids, all paths for us lead us to the right thing for us to do was just give that money back. And more than that, use what has allowed us to earn it to allow us to spend it the right way. Giving money is actually not that hard. I was making the analogy with credit. You can just give it away. But I think what's special is we've been blessed with certain problem-solving abilities that allowed us to make that money. We should also use that time and those skills to invest that money the best way possible for society. So it is going actually, I think the commitment we're doing by setting up our own family foundation, which is something that we want to do it the right way. We want to do it with world-class people. There's nothing in Latin America that has ever been like this. I spent time with Bill Gates talking about the Gates Foundation, and that's probably why he put that Twitter. But he was a big part of the example. He was very generous with his time. We want to build something that is an institution that will really think structurally about these problems and be disruptive and almost use a lot of what we've learned building Nubank around philanthropy and solving our problems and deploy that capital the right way.